Welcome back to another week of The Laws That Matter. I'm Carissa Kranz, and today we have Robert Elder, founder of 118 and First. He's an attorney, he's a consultant, and a business entrepreneur, and he has a product that is certified vegan by BeVeg. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right into this. So everyone knows that with vegan products, it's on the rise right now. I mean, you just look at the investments out there that is launching on the market. How did you get into launching a vegan product?
That's a family matter. We're a family business. My son, Michael, does the day-to-day operations. My other son is an investor. My brother works on sales with us. My wife is in the business. And actually, the inspiration came from the family. I think we had been chatting in a previous conversation, and you indicated that you used to like a restaurant in New York called Pure Food and Wine. I mean, it was a raw vegan
restaurant.
Okay? It was absolutely superb. It really was. And I have two beautiful vegan nieces, and one of them came in from California with her husband, who is also a vegan. And so my wife made reservations at Pure Food and Wine. And we had 8 people. The food was wonderful, and the wine was very good too. But we couldn't get any spirits. They didn't serve it because they were a raw vegan restaurant. Now, I'm going to assume that most of your viewers know the difference between a vegan and a raw vegan. But it's
yes, but you know what? That's a good point, because the viewers on Jane Unchained News Network does, but these shows get shared out onto many other platforms. So why don't you explain that?
Okay, so if you're a vegan, it's very simple. You don't eat any animal products or anything that's been processed with an animal product. If you're a raw vegan, there's an additional stricture, and that is you don't eat any product that has been processed at over 118 degrees Fahrenheit. And why is that? Well, because at over 118 degrees, it begins to degrade the natural flavors of the food and the natural enzymes and a lot of the benefits. So when you adhere to a raw vegan diet, it's great to have wine because wine is naturally fermented and it stops at about 114 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can have beer because it's also a fermented product, not a distilled product. But if you want a martini, you were no longer, but you were out of luck because.
So is this 118? Is this a requirement for food or alcoholic beverages or anything?
Absolutely, anything that's been processed. Yes, ma'am.
So then your company name O.R.E 118 and First has meaning in the title 118.
Absolutely, because O.R.E, we preserve the original raw essence of the grapes from which our product is made, and 118, we never process above 118 degrees Fahrenheit. And First, we're the first to do it.
I like that, the first. I was going to ask you, what does the first mean? So you learn something new every day.
Yeah, and it's also fun for me because my Italian mom was raised on 118th Street and First Avenue, New York City. So it was a little bit of karma, that the process worked out and coincided with an old family address. So there you go.
I like that. I like the synchronicity. I think sometimes in life when things are meant to be, you have that kind of synchronicity or that evidence of the universe nudging you to do something, like that extra bit of confirmation or that wink from heaven that this is what you're supposed to be doing.
That's a lovely way to think about it. Thank you very much. And yes, I sort of felt the same way.
So how did you take this from idea to actual production? A lot of people have ideas. Not everyone takes it to market.
Yeah, it was a long process because regular distillation begins at 174 degrees Fahrenheit. So we had a very wide path that we had to narrow, in order to get to where we could produce this. So we did a lot of testing with a master distiller who's also a trained chemist, a lot of benchtop work, a lot of different formulations, and eventually we got to where we are, which is that in order to produce the product, instead of using regular heat distillation, we use vacuum distillation. So when you create a vacuum, you lower the temperature at which ethanol vaporizes off of the liquid.
Are your nieces raw vegans or are they just vegans?
No, they're just vegans, but I happened to take them to a raw vegan restaurant, and I couldn't get a martini, and neither could they. So we were looking for something to do in the spirits or wine industry. My grandfather used to make his own wine. I had an uncle who used to make his own grappa. So my boys were interested, and as you say, it was just karma. I said, "Well, okay, we'll create a."
Before you did this and launched this business, what were you doing as a career?
As a career, well, I'm an attorney and a consultant. It just so happened.
What kind of lawyer?
What kind of a lawyer? I do government contract law.
Okay, well, that's very different than launching a product.
It is, but I also was an investor in a small pharmaceutical company that made specialty pharmaceutical companies through fermentation. So I had a background, somewhat of a background in fermentation chemistry from what I picked up in that business. So for me, it was a natural to make the jump from pharmaceutical fermentation preparation over to alcohol fermentation.
So I think a lot of people watching and who would watch our show and this network have products that they would like to launch and don't really know how to take it to market. So how did you really get from A to Z? So you got the idea, and how did you begin finding a supplier, coming up with packaging? How much of it did you do on your own? How much of it did you outsource? How did you actually successfully achieve a product launch?
Well, I'm a consultant, so I sought out some good consultants. And actually, can I give a plug? Can I give a plug to somebody? Sure. So there's a wonderful place down in Louisville, Kentucky called Moonshine University. And Moonshine University is run by people who are in the industry. They work, I think, in conjunction with the Distilled Spirits Council. And they actually run courses for people who are interested in getting into the industry. It's a great, you're down there for a week, you're together with other similarly interested people, and they run you through the basics. And they're very helpful in putting you together with consultants who can help you develop your product. So there you go. I'm a graduate of Georgetown Law and Moonshine University. How about that?
Well, any graduate of Georgetown Law is probably very resourceful in being able to follow through. I think as a lawyer myself here, I think lawyers have a tenacity and a attention to detail that is often required to successfully launch anything in life successfully, because you really have to pay attention to details and leave no stone unturned.
And you learn to do the research before you launch into something.
Yeah, the research, and as a lawyer, you know a little bit about everything from law school and the bar. You may not be an expert at all those everythings, but you know a little bit about trademark law, and a little bit about consumer laws, and a little bit about NDAs and confidentiality and trade secret, and enough to figure out what you need to know and what you don't know. And sometimes I think that's what's most important, knowing what you don't know, or knowing that you know enough, but that you don't know enough about something, and that you need to seek out the expert in that field.
Absolutely. You have to be smart enough to know that you can't do everything yourself. You have to find the right people who can do it for you. So there you are.
So you've pretty much staffed your family.
Yes. and we have a tremendous amount of fun. We really do. And that's the key to it. I mean, if you're going to launch into something like this, which can be very difficult and very demanding, you ought to at least be able to have a good time along the way. And we managed to.
So what is the day-to-day like for the Elder family?
Well, as I said, my son Michael runs the day-to-day operations of the business. I don't. I have reached the point where I get to do interviews with people like you. Thank you very much. And I get to make appearances at restaurants and tastings. But I pretty much pay attention to my day-to-day business all the time. I don't let it go. Just as you. I mean, you're an attorney. You have your show once a week, but you don't let your day-to-day business go. You can't do that. Right?
Well, it's all part of it, right? So I wear many hats. It sounds like I need a family to staff. Or
Well, there you go.
I need to find how to duplicate myself. If someone could trademark or come up with some patent to like make multiple me's, I think I would be really successful at everything I do.
Well, it would be nice. There'd be more of you to share, but but what you're missing that is the variety and people to tell you that's not a good idea. Don't do it that way.
Yeah, you mean people might overdose on Carissa?
Well, you can overdose on anything, even something as nice as you. So there you go.
Well, it's nice that you've found a way to have your whole family involved. So how long ago did you get your start with this launch of O.R.E. 118 and First?
Well, we started about 3 years ago, and we had a year or so of development, and that included, everything from working on the basic formulation to deciding what kind of botanical mix would give the best flavor, to designing a bottle label that would tell the story, right? Because there's thousands and thousands of different spirits out there to choose from. And so if you want to make yours a little bit unique, we have to do that. So that took quite a while. And then we're very fortunate. We have a very good distributor, O.P.G., and O.P.G., which is also a family operation. They're large, but they're a family operation. They're fourth generation, running O.P.G. wine and spirits distribution. They take the sales burden out of our hands, and they do a lovely job in the field.
So I mean, I do agree that it's interesting that your label says on it premium raw vegan. As the founder and CEO of BeVeg, a vegan certification firm, our entire goal is to get, companies to see the value of vegan labeling and certified vegan labeling at that, which your product is certified vegan.
We're proud to show that. These are our shelf talkers. I got to get it. There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. And we have the BeVeg. Well, it's not quite a martini glass, but it's a lovely glass.
BeVeg. Yeah. Our global trademark. That's our global trademark for beverages. So, but I want to ask you, because
let me say one thing. I just want to thank you. Okay.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Because when you have a product that is unique, right, and you have a story behind it, people will question and they'll say, well, what makes it vegan? What makes it raw vegan? Are we sure that it's vegan? Are we sure that it's raw vegan? And so what your logo does is it tells people that we're certified, that you've looked at every step along the way. And so it gives them a great deal of assurance. So helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Third-party verification is important for, and we're accredited as well. So that brings extra assurance in the international, world accreditation, community. But it's important what you're saying here. Really, I have an interest, and I don't know the answer to the question, but maybe you can answer it. Is, we certify lots of different products vegan, and sometimes companies will come to us and say, we want your certification because we want to be able to say we're vegan when it's relevant to us, but we don't want to have to put vegan on our bottle because we think, or on our product, because we think it could hurt our sales. We think that marketing vegan could hurt us. And I remember 10 years ago, organic had the same problem, especially in the industry of wines. Now there's separate sections in the grocery store for organic, and it's a positive. But 10 years ago, sales decreased statistically when marketed organic because people thought it meant an inferior product. What is your experience in marketing a clearly defined vegan product, even without certification? You are saying vegan loud and clear. Your package coloring are different shades of green to infer plant-based. I mean, you're going all in the plant-based movement here, and you're saying we're vegan. How is that helping or hurting your sales or distribution ability? What is your experience firsthand in that?
Well, it certainly piques curiosity. mean, there are, I believe now, roughly 600 different gin labels on the market in the U.S. And there's one that's a raw vegan gin, right? So people will ask, what is a raw vegan gin? What makes it raw vegan? And to a degree, then it has to become a little bit of a hand sell. The people at store level, you're not going to be there, so the people at store level have to be educated in what makes it different, what makes it better. And of course, the best way to do that is to allow them to taste it at the same time, because it is a unique taste, and because of the way it's done. So yeah, I mean, some people will say, I'm a Gordon's gin drinker and I don't want to know about anything else. And then there are people who say, gee, I'd love to try something like that. So my experience is that it piques people's interest. It needs to be explained to them. We try and do that as best we can on the bottle, but then you also have to be careful to educate the people who are going to be carrying your product. And we have some bartenders that are great ambassadors. You know, we're at Bathtub Gin and at Candle Cafe and Tribeca Grill, and the bartenders have gotten behind it with unique drinks because
and NOBU.
And NOBU downtown here in New York. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. La Galou just put it in, which is a Michelin starred restaurant. So yeah, you have to build word of mouth and taste that way.
Mm-hmm. So I noticed that on most, like basically all alcohol products, frankly, there's no ingredient labeling that's required by the Tobacco and Trade Bureau. And that, even on looking at your bottle, it tells a nice story, and you have the required government warning and you're saying vegan, but you're not really saying what goes into making the actual liquid inside. And I think a lot of people need education on what makes something not vegan. And the Tobacco and Trade Bureau, I had heard once said that there's up to close to 70 ingredients that could go into making an alcoholic beverage, none of which is required to be disclosed. Tell us a little bit about making, what could be in this that wouldn't be vegan. I think people want to know, like, what could go in. People think, oh, it's just what makes it not vegan, right? I'm aware that there could be a sugar or there could be a processing aid, but you're more of an expert of what actually could go into making this. So in your experience, what could go in this specifically?
People run into problems with filtration. People say, well, they'll use charcoal or activated charcoal filtration. And that's great if it's a vegan charcoal, if it's one that's made from coconut husks. But there are a lot on the market that are made from charred animal bones. So you could be filtering it that way, which of course would make it non-vegan. There are some membrane fining products that are used in treating wine. Isinglass, which is made from an animal product. So
we often know and hear about this with wines, but what about spirits? Same thing?
Well, certainly same things as far as the charcoal filtration is concerned. Yes, absolutely. And our product is wine based, so in that respect, we're doubly careful. We start with a Chardonnay, and from there we use the vacuum process, and we only take it to about 160 proof, which makes it an eau-de-vie, a clear brandy made from grapes. So if we put it in a barrel for a couple of years, it'd look like the brandies that you're used to drinking. Instead of that, then we do organic botanicals and macerate them. And you have to be careful that your botanicals are organic. And then filtrations, and you have your final product. But where you step into trouble when it comes to spirits or with wines are things that are used in the refining process, not necessarily or not normally the ingredients, but things that are used in the refining process.
Yeah, it's a whole education program because a lot of people just don't know and understand that so much goes into making food, beverages, makeup, clothes, anything that we as a consumer buy that are just not disclosed to us, and that trade secret law protects the product's trade secrets to the detriment of consumer transparency. So a lot of times consumers are at the whim of a lack of transparency that is misleading, and the laws are supposed to protect. There's consumer protection there's the Consumer Protection Act, which is supposed to protect the consumer interest from any deceitful, misleading advertising. But unfortunately, when it comes to vegan claims, that's not the case, which is why we as a certification company have defined a standard.
What you do is great, absolutely, because you're limited on your label. I mean, even if food, right? We're very simple. We're wine, grapes to wine, to distillation, to a mix of organic botanicals. But, you know, you can get very complex in doing things. And even if you wanted to, you just couldn't disclose them all on the label. So you do a couple of things. You try and have a website that people can go to and get educated. But that takes proactive on the part of the person who wants to be educated. Or you can do something like be certified by somebody like you. And it just, you know, so it's a seal of approval.
So where can people find your product, in stores or online?
Well, both. In New York, we're distributed by O.R.E. I gave you some of the restaurants that we could go to, and then they also, of course, we're at Crush on 57th Street. We're at Liquor Up, Wine Down. We're at a lot of stores around the city. But you can go to Drizzly, and you can purchase our product through Drizzly. So if you're sitting out in California, they can find somebody who carries our wine, our gin. They can get it to you. That would be the best way.
Mm-hmm. And any final thoughts? Anything you want us to know, or social media handles to follow you at?
No, I think well you can go O.R.E 118 gin and just put that in Google, and it will take you to our website and give you a lot of our media and press, and including yours. And other than that, no. The proof is in the tasting. And unfortunately, as lovely as this opportunity is and talking to you is, they can't taste it here virtually. So what does make the difference is that we don't use a lot of juniper. We're very citrus with lime and ginger. And so find a bottle, give it a try, see what you think.
Well, one thing I really love is that your brand really elevates the status of veganism, and BeVeg, as my company, also is always aspiring to do that. I think as a born and raised vegan, that the term vegan often comes criticized as a sacrifice or something that's too strict or something that's looked upon with disdain. And the reality is that mindset needs to be redefined, and it is being redefined with luxury brands like yours. Yours is seen at NOBU restaurants, which we all know is a world-class restaurant. It's seen at Michelin star restaurants. And then it's also seen at high-end upscale New York vegan restaurants, and you're hitting the market in a classy way. And for vegan and the movement to make it a commercially viable movement in terms of product launches and product labeling, I think it's so important for other products to see that there are vegan products on the market clearly and boldly wearing the vegan claim loud and proud on their product and making headway commercially in stores and in top restaurants. That says a lot.
Well, thank you. The next time we're in New York, we'll share a cocktail at Candle Cafe or at Tribeca or at Bathtub Gin. And the next time somebody tells you that being a vegan has to be a sacrifice, offer them a very dry martini made with 118. How about that?
Sounds great. Yeah, I can't wait for it. I don't know when I'll be back in New York with this COVID pandemic, but it's been more than a year. I certainly miss it, though, out there.
Well, we look forward to seeing you.
Okay, Robert. Well, thank you for your time. It was lovely having you. And cheers. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Cheers. Salud.